We're here with Brian Dickson of BD Loops, and he's got a couple of cool things and a couple reminders that we need to know about loops. So, Brian, tell me about this new loop that you've got.
Sure. So we unveiled this at the Fencetech show, and basically what it is it's a quadrupole style loop. It's a loop that's basically wrapped in a figure-8 pattern, and what its main functionality and what it's for is to make more reliable motorcycle detection. Now, don't get me wrong, a 6x6 can still detect a motorcycle, no problem. But what's really good about this is it has more corners to the loop, and more corners means it's more sensitive in those areas. Also, the way that the loop is wrapped has more turns down the center, so when a motorcycle goes down the center of the loop, you get a larger percentage of change, meaning you get a stronger detection. So this is something that we literally just came out with. There will be more information on our website about it in the next couple weeks. But let me show you something else that's over here too. So BD Loops also offers 3/16" wide blades. Now 3/16" wide blades are a harder blade size to find. Now, regardless if you use our preformed socket loops that are designed to fit into a 3/16" wide cut, or if you hand wrap a loop with a spool of wire, 3/16 is the optimal size to use. And see, there is a smaller blade size out there, which is an 1/8" wide cut. Now, an 1/8" wide cut, which is unfortunately more commonly blade width size that's used, does not allow enough clearance for the loop sealant to fully encapsulate the wires. Now what happens then is, since the other turns are now loose down below the top turn where the sealant can't get around and encapsulate an 1/8" wide groove, it leaves room for the wires to move, which if the wires move, you can get false detections. Now see, a 3/16" wide cut is wide enough so that the sealant can really get down in there, fully encapsulate, and prevent those nasty air pockets from occurring. Remember too, in cold weather applications, if you have air pockets and water gets in there, when water freezes, it expands. And when that expansion occurs, it can push the loop right up out of the groove. And that could be a problem where now a snowplow dries over it and now you have a failed loop. Now, our preformed socket loops are designed to fit into a 3/16" wide cut. And that's both for the loop section as well as the lead-in section too. You can see the actual width of that is exactly the right size. And so the advantage here is you're going to be using less loop sealant because the jacket takes up a larger percentage. It adds more protection, as well as you don't have to wrap, you don't have to twist, you don't have to double cut. There's just so many more advantages to using like a preformed socket loop.
You kind of have a dual display of what can happen with the air pocket.
Yeah, so you see here, this is what our loops look like when it's inside of a 3/16" wide cut. You only have to seal what's above the top turn.
All right. Yeah, I still use a double 1/8", and you just told me right there I'm costing myself money.
Yeah, when you double up two 1/8" blades, what happens is it doubles the wire's width, which if you're, the groove's width. And so when you're doubling the width, that's 25% larger than a 3/16. That means 25% more of that sealant you got to use. So really 3/16 is the optimal size, regardless if you use a BD loop or if you hand wrap a loop with a spool of wire.
Last year we talked about your cold weather sealant, and it was new at the time.
Yeah.
Right. So how's it doing?
This has been out for really only one winter, and people are really starting to understand its benefits now. Basically, what it is it's a winter blend loop sealant that can cure in cold temperature. Now, most other sealants, polyurethanes or latex or even rubberized-based loop sealants, they're not supposed to be used in cold weather. In fact, our normal single-part loop sealant, that should not be used if it's below 36 degrees. This, on the other hand, the two-part, which is referred to as BDLG2, is a polyurethane loop sealant that can cure in sub-zero temperatures. Now, it does have one other added benefit, and that is when you use it in warm weather, it actually hardens in 10-15 minutes. And so if you have a 10-15 minute cure time in warm weather, that means you can open up the lane earlier. By the time you pack up your tools, it is all done and ready to go. You don't have to worry about the cars driving down the lane, getting on your wet sealant, and then making a mess down the roadway. Also, if you're expecting rain, this is a really good product because you don't want water to mix with loop sealant. If it mixes together, it creates bubbles, it looks bad, it ruins the seal. This, on the other hand, you can apply beforehand with its quick curability, in warm weather, of course. It makes it so that it hardens up and we don't have to worry about the rain coming in and messing with your seal.
Just a FYI, because I'm about to go into the display that you told me not to go to. What's the next expo that you're going to be at so somebody can check this little demo out?
We are going to be at the PI Show, which is a parking show in San Diego, California, and that is in about 2 weeks.
Do you know your booth number there yet? Probably.
It's on our website.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things about testing loops is there's a couple different types of testers, but you guys actually have a loop, a Megometer, an insulation tester that they can buy directly from you, correct?
You would still have to get this through one of our distributors, but we do offer this Megometer because every installation technician who works on loops needs a way to test the wire in the ground. Now, most installers will have a volt-ohm meter, which will basically test for continuity, which means for loops that will test if the wire is completely severed or cut. That will not tell you the more common problem, which is if the wire is just nicked. And so a Megometer, which is an insulation tester, basically tests the insulation layer. And for reference, insulation is that protective coating around the copper of the loop. So regardless if you're using our products or if you're using a hand wrap loop with a spool of wire, this device can test either of those. Basically how it works is it's looking for a connection point between the two probes of your Megometer. And so I'll go ahead and turn this meter on. And you can see when I touch the two probes together, you'll watch that the pin goes all the way down to 0 megohms. Now, when they're not touching, they're at infinity or over 1,000 megohms. Now, how you would do a test with a Megometer is you first disconnect the loop from the operator. You would then connect one probe to the copper of the loop. So we're just gonna disconnect the loop. We'll have 2 wires left. We'll connect one of these to one of the copper loop, doesn't matter which one. And then the other probe is going to go to a good solid ground, which that could be a ground rod, it could be the operator if it's bolted into a concrete pad, it could even be a screwdriver just shoved into a garden bed and doused with a little bit of water. Now, what would happen here is if there is a nick somewhere in either the loop lead-in or the loop, when you send the current through here, it's going to escape out where that nick is. And when that occurs, it will make a connection point to the other end of the probe, which is into ground. Now, oftentimes you may have a nick, but it won't show itself when it is dry. So you actually have to go in and water down the area of the loop and the lead-in, simulate like rainfall, and then that is what facilitates the short to ground and where it will show its problem.
And that's what you kind of have going on here, which is so cool because I bet there's a lot of people, especially new guys, who've never seen it actually, what's actually happening. But if you're in San Diego in a couple weeks and you're at the booth, check this out. So basically you have simulated condition where you have bad insulation and then you have water, which acts as a great conductor.
Yeah.
In this case, like regular rainwater or whatever.
So this kind of really gets the concept across because you can see here, this is an example of damaged section. It's not actually completely cut through, it is just nicked. And so what we can do in this display is we actually put the loop into a groove. So we have a little saw cut groove that we can just fit this into here. And then what we do now is we connect one probe to the copper of the loop, and then we get the other probe and then just connect it to ground. And then in doing so, that makes the connection point between the ground and then that damaged section that is, can't even really see under there. But then when water gets in here, it's making a short to ground through basically the asphalt connecting to the other probe, which is connected to your ground.
And if somebody tried to do this with a Megometer, it doesn't have enough electrical pressure to make that happen. Is that correct?
Well, with a So a Megameter and a Multimeter are like two different types of testing devices. So a Multimeter will tell if you have continuity or not. So it will tell you if from point A to point B, do we have a connection or not? So if it's open. Whereas a Megameter will just tell you if the wire is nicked. Which if there's wires nicked, what happens is when current travels through, it will travel the path of least resistance and it will escape out to ground. Which the symptom of a gate operator is the gate will basically lock open. And that's because the board recognizes there's a detector module there, but there is no loop hooked up to it because the circuit isn't being completed. Instead of the circuit being completed, the current goes out to ground. Now remember, this only happens in heavy areas where there may be rain occurring. So rain gets in there, it causes the loop to short to ground, but only during that time when the water is present. Once all that rain dries up, system goes into back normal operation. That is why when loops are shorting to ground, the problem is very, very intermittent. And it causes a lot of installers headaches because they'll go out there, test the loop with their multimeter or possibly even with their Megometer when it's dry, and the problem doesn't show itself. Which means
so if that happens during installation and they use the loop goop, will and obviously you don't. I test my loops when I install them right off the bat, so I have, if you will, a reference to go by. Because sometimes you test a marginal, come back 5 years later, they still test marginal, and you don't have any problems with it.
A lot of detector modules will still allow the system to work, even though the loop itself is shorting to ground. And it's really when the ground or the short to ground is very, very severe that the problem becomes a headache to the customer.
So when you use your sealant, it actually will encapsulate the whole. It's not made to fix that problem.
It is not made to fix that problem, but you are correct that if it does get into an area where perhaps it was nicked during installation, it could coat it, protect it. In the event, though, that sealant does wear over time, if water gets into where that damaged section is, it will short to ground and ultimately lead to the gate locking open.
But it's guaranteed if you don't use somebody else's sealant and it's got a nick in there, water's getting in there.
For sure. If they're using like a crack filler, something that's not actually a loop sealant designed to seal loops, it could cause those issues.
Well, Brian, as always, we appreciate it, and if you could check them out in San Diego in a couple of weeks and look at that demonstration, I think even for your new guys and guys who have been out in the field who've never actually understood what's going on, that's a perfect demonstration. So bdloops.com. The other thing about that is you guys got a bunch of tech support regardless of what product that they buy on your website.
Yeah, we have a lot of just loop knowledge on our website. We have a full section of our website dedicated to education on loops. It is referred to as the Education and More page. It is a bright yellow tab at the top of the page. It's really hard to miss it when you go to bdloops.com.
All right, Brian, I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.